Hi, I'm Carcina.
Oh, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
No one knows Carcino and none of these.
There's so much going on in the world, and I'm just giving my 2 cents on it. Go in and do a raid at someone's house, but you don't have an arrest warrant for them. Reviews are coming in distant. Now it's up to 39% because other people reviews are coming out. And here the meter's at 95. But if this was all about the difference of the movie, why would they be such a dramatic number in between fans and critics? Now, let's go up to the miniseries Leaving Neverland, a series with lies about all Michael Jackson and the two boys who said they were abused by Michael Jackson and all that, talking about Leaving Neverland. A documentational series that's all about lies. 98% from the critics. They thought it was amazing. 26% from the fans. So the fans are telling you, you're no longer going to write these narratives about Michael Jackson and spread these damn lies. They're not going. They told you when y'all did this bullshit before that you're not going to tell these American lies that don't travel worldwide that you thought, all because they wanted the Beatles catalog and they got it. And they still are trying to tear Michael Jackson down because people like Tommy Mottola still hates Michael Jackson even though he's dead. He doesn't want Michael's legacy to continue and will do anything to tarnish it. But let's review Michael from a proper stance of a review. Here's the problem in the divide between the fans and the movie critics. Those who weren't biased and said they weren't as thrilled with the movie, here's what they're looking at. Because the movie does have its flaws. Michael's story is too vast to do in one movie. Hell, you couldn't do my life story in one movie. But Michael Jackson, there's no way you could do it in one movie like they did Elvis. You just couldn't do it. Michael's story is too vast. So, no. Happy birthday, bro. Well, here's the thing. Here's why some of the critics are divided, is that they would seem like this is kind of surface level. Michael, you have to understand that there are kids who were born after Michael Jackson was deceased. He died in 2009. And since Michael's passed, that's been almost 20 years ago. There's new kids who don't know anything about Michael. So they're learning about Michael and touching in on some of who he was as a person behind the scenes. Like the things of this film is that nothing was explored. They would touch on subjects or say something, but they wouldn't explore it really, like his cosmetic surgeries. They didn't really explore it. They saw him going through it, You gotta kind of like feel like he just felt insecure about himself, but it was never flushed out in the movie. They just went to the next scene, and they kind of go to the next scene. When Joe wanted to see his nose and everything, and then they go to the next scene, everything else, they go to the next scene. So if you're looking at it from a critic standpoint and they want a flushed out movie, this was fan pleasing. This was one for the fans. This was made to entertain more than just be a biographical pic that goes through every aspect of his life. Because I don't want to see that. I've seen all that on the internet. To see them act that whole thing out, that would bring the movie down. So I see why they didn't do it. Then you open yourself up to lawsuits. Other people saying, that's not how I said that. They made me look like a fool. And because the movie make money, here comes a lawsuit. So now all this stuff and all the critics who gave their reasons, like they didn't even touch on any of the allegations. Why would they touch on the allegations? And if you've seen the movie, for you to say they didn't touch on the allegations, that's how I know most of these critics was writing this and they didn't even watch the film. They didn't even watch the movie. Because if you watch the movie, it ends right when he's performing the song I'm Bad. And it says his story will continue, which means that there'll be a part 2, a sequel. I don't know what you're talking about. They screwed up. They didn't screw up anything. The movie's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. Now, like I said, there are certain aspects that I've seen online that everybody can see online and have it flushed out. But for a 2-hour movie, it was done in a more surface level situation. Plus, you're dealing with a family that is very private. So when you're dealing with a family that's very private, they're not going to want certain stuff out there. And you're going to fight like hell to try to get it out there. All that stuff about the sexual allegation, that stuff never happened yet. It didn't happen yet. So if the movie ends before all that stuff happens, that's going to have to be in the next movie. Plus, they tried to do it that way, and they couldn't because they were talking about the lawsuits. So they had to reshoot 30 minutes of the movie, reshoot another half hour of the movie because of how it ended and how they were going to do the ending. So they had to reshoot the ending. So some critics who were judging it correctly would say it was kind of surface level based on what they gave us, and they didn't kind of flush out. They discussed things, but didn't quite flush it out. like Michael Jackson going from Motown to Epic. It was just done and wasn't flushed out. It just went straight from they were on with Berry Gordy, they were on Motown, now they're on Epic Records. They just jumped right there. There was time jumps. So if you're a movie critic and you wanted to see more of that explored in a film, this is why this is more focused on Michael's career than that. You would need a Jackson family movie to explain that. This part is to focus on Michael. So I understood what the director was doing and why he was doing what he was doing. Because you know about the Jackson story. You've heard it played out 1,000 times. They had the miniseries. We're not going to reenact the entire miniseries. That was based on the Jacksons, okay? An American family, the Jacksons. All right? This is about Michael Jackson. So we're going to keep the focus on Michael. Now, here's some things that they didn't explore and some things that they got different because they wanted to make the center villain of the movie Joe Jackson. Michael's battle with Joe to find his identity and find his confidence and be able to step up to his father, who was like the biggest bully in his life. Now, that was earlier, folks. Most of y'all don't remember, or you missed out. That was a special live stream for the movie fans, those who like film. Now we got to get into the nitty gritty. And this is what's going on. Now we're going to go in what was missing, why it was missing, things of that nature, right? We kind of touched on it a little bit in there, in that video. But let's get to one of the main things, like I said, the cosmetic surgeries. The reason why Diana Ross wasn't in the movie, why wasn't she featured more? Because once again, that goes down a whole nother road, too vast, unnecessary. Now you got to involve Diana Ross. Diana Ross never discovered the Jackson 5. So there was no need to put Diana Ross in that situation. She didn't discover it. The lady who discovered them was there. The Plaza or whatever, she was there. She brought them to Motown and she read Joe Jackson, all of that. They got brought to Motown. And they brought them out and ran with the storyline that Diana Ross discovered them. So that was just to sell the idea of the records, and putting the Jackson 5 with Diana Ross kept Diana Ross relevant, as well as showcasing the Jackson 5 on a world stage. So that's why I was there. And as they got older, they was put on display with Cher. Cher had her own like musical show. They put the Jackson on a lot of TV programs. Like things that other groups didn't do. Now on the thumbnail, you see myself during the Thriller movement. Like I said, I had a Beat It jacket. I had the whole outfit for Beat It. I had the glove. I I had the jacket, I had the black leather pants. So when you see people try to talk down on the movie, most people are doing it, that especially people of color. Some of them are doing it out of a situation for attention because all the fans are loving the movie. You know, you see some people go on TikTok like, oh, this movie was awful. They did him wrong. Just so people could put their attention to him and say, whoa, some black people said this movie sucked. So they want to do it that way. The movie is not bad at all. This is like I told you, it's 3 stars out of 4. The entertainment value is through the roof. They just didn't dive deep, and they just gave you surface level type of things. Like, for instance, right, they have to condense this to a 2-hour movie. If they were to explore more into these topics, you'll be forever. Plus, most of you have seen this stuff. Some people wanted to see Michael Jackson get beat more. Like, they ain't really going to the beatings. I wanted to see more of the beatings. I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, Michael was trying, Joe, and had to, get toe up. Now, most of these critics, like I told you, well, I told them in that thing, like being in the media, I have movie credentials, film credentials. See, before I would have never been allowed to have film credentials. And the reason why is because now the game is done. It's over. The people on the internet, you guys all can have the rights to be part of the media now. So they can no longer write their narrative. The newspapers are dying. So they try to use their power and persuasion through like Rotten Tomatoes. When Rotten Tomatoes first started, it was created by film goers, real film critics and real, so they can get the word out and, review the movies correctly. But just like media, they could be bought. Most of these guys are corrupt and been bought and paid off. And some of them as little as just like giving them front row tickets to something. Is that just that pathetic? And I watched them do this campaign, being in sports boxing media, that they had to sit there and endure the abuse, like Floyd Mayweather, when they wanted him to fight Manny Pacquiao. They printed a lie, and all of them, everybody in the media printed the same lie. The man never said those words, and they just defamed him the entire moment. And they kept printing the same lie. It was in every writer's category just kept reposting the same thing the other person said. People didn't even see the movie are screaming about, what about the allegations? The allegations wouldn't appear now because it wasn't in the film at all. This is what I was trying to tell people before. It wouldn't have shown up because of the way the film ends. None of that has happened yet. So if you saw the movie, why would you be asking for it? You wrote your article based on what someone else's article was about, and they wanted you to push that narrative. Like, we want the allegations. But if it was about telling the truth about the film, as you could see, when I showed that Leaving Neverland, right? 98% from the critics, when it's complete garbage. Lies, slander, all trash. Fans showed you 26% like that documentary. Everybody knew it was lies. There's definitely going to be a part 2. Whether there's a 3, I don't know, but it's definitely a part 2 coming. Michael Jackson did $217 million in a weekend, the movie. And they're not even through counting Sunday. It did 100 million in the first day. It cost 170 million to make. With promotion, you're looking at another 100 million. So let's say the break-even point is 300 million. They're at 217 in the first weekend. People are going back 2 and 3 times to see it. I've seen the film twice, and we'll be going back a third. You know why? Because it's entertaining. People want to be entertained. And there's kids out there who just are now discovering Michael Jackson. Like he was deceased before they were born. They're like 16, 17. So for teenagers, where there's TikTok now and all this stuff, now they get to do their dances on TikTok. You see the movie theaters, people are dancing at the end of the movies. That's what they wanted to bring. That's what the spirit of Michael was about. Michael was about entertaining the people. So they did surface level stuff. They explored a little into the dynamic of what happened with the Pepsi incident, the fire, and Joe was made to be the main villain. It was Michael fight for his independence. That's what really this was about. Him coming into being his own man. So, as a movie critic, I don't know how they missed that. But if you were a fair movie critic, I can understand your criticism about them not exploring situations. Like, for instance, I'll tell you, the Berry Gordy and the Joe Jackson fight over Michael. They glance over that in the film. You see a little bit of it when Berry Gordy's trying to tell Joe his place, and he's trying to teach Michael something, and Joe Jackson comes and breaks that up. But yeah, he gets to the point where over the years, Michael is learning. He's going over to Berry Gordy's house. He loves it over there. He doesn't want to go back home. He likes being around Berry Gordy and seeing how he is with his kids and his family. And Joe is like, look, Berry Gordy ain't your daddy. I'm your daddy. I'm going to tell you, I tell you what to do, not him. I'm the one taking care of you, raising you, not Berry Gordy. And they kind of don't go down or explore that situation. All of what I'm telling you is not shown in the movie. Like, they really rarely show Berry Gordy. They show one scene of Berry Gordy, then they showed another one at the Motown reunion. So with that being done or said, these factors that's put in place. Oh yeah, of course I remember the game Moonwalker. If he had some autism, I don't think he had autism. I just think he was different. He loved people and pets. He was forced into the entertainment world as a kid, but he was not like his brothers. You know, his brothers was like considered to be normal people. Michael was an introvert. You know, he was completely different. And he was very, sensitive, insecure. So and they trying to say Joe's discipline on him. Joe didn't discriminate and just only whoop Michael. He whooped Tito, Jermaine, Latoya, Janet, anybody could get it. He was an equal opportunity ass with them. If you got out of line, he put you right back in line. But he was a disciplinarian, you know, in a really, he didn't know how to be a father. You know, like it can't always be disciplinary. There has to be, you know, there has to be fatherly love. Michael never got that from him. They weren't even allowed to call him dad. He wanted to so bad to call him dad or father. They would get a whooping if they did that. They have to call him Joseph. And Michael's mother, she never challenged. She challenges him behind the scenes. You know, like leave the boys alone. You know, like, but she never questioned the father's place in the house. Listen to your father. You know. Joe was right. He would have never got caught in all those allegations if he'd have stayed home. That's not true. That's not true. If he'd have stayed home, did MJ really bring the Bloods and Crips together? He didn't bring them together. They were put in there, though. Yes, that was true. From the Beat It and in some of his videos, he wanted to stop violence. See, me knowing everything about Michael Jackson there is, I've learned nothing about this movie that was new. I was like hoping I would see something that I didn't even know. I'm quite sure there's things I don't know. But believe me, a lot of it I do. I mean, a lot. I was finishing lines in the movie before the first time I seen it. I was finishing lines because it was like they got it from documentaries. You could see almost all of it on YouTube, like now. But I knew the players in the game. I knew what was going on at that time because I lived it. Most of you didn't live it. Like you weren't alive. It's not your fault, but you just weren't alive when a lot of this stuff was going on. I remember it. I remember the papers. I remember the tours. I remember all of this. So me being a kid, like you see me there with my Beat It jacket, this is when Beat It was out. So this is when Thriller was out. I got on the Beat It jacket, everything. So I'm letting you know this ain't blah, blah, blah. I'm just talking, no. My family were all musicians, just like the Jackson 5. All my uncles were in a band. They made an album, everything, called The Chambers of Time. Every black family had a family that had bands. They used to have Battle of the Bands in school. They used to teach music in school. They took that out of schools because blacks were too talented and they were dominating the music charts. Now you have to pay and go somewhere to a school to learn music. So all your artistic natural gifts of knowing music and everything else has been stunted. They want you in the streets doing violence. But there used to be band practice and taking music in school. They took music out of school. You know, people were naturally talented. They can play the piano by ear. They didn't even know how to read music yet. They didn't even have to go to school to learn it. So when they went to school, they were able to play everything. Mozart just by listening to it once. My grandmother could play the piano. She never went to school for music, but could play a piano. Like playing it off ear. Hear it and play it. All my uncles was in there except for one. He was the artist in the family. So all my family were talented in that field. My uncles still perform to this day. And they're in their 70s. They're still out performing, doing shows. That's just them. So the Jackson 5 doing it at the same time as them. So naturally, they're seeing them when they go perform at these little small shows. You see the Jacksons, they're right by us. They're in Gary, Indiana. We're in Chicago. That's a 40-minute drive. So if you get a venue back then, you're going to meet the Jacksons. You're going to meet all these people coming up, performing and doing songs. So my uncles and them interacted in the same places when they would go out and do their shows. But they just blew up because Michael was incredible. There was another kid, the Comets. They were the Comets. And they had another kid, just like Michael, another kid who was like 10 years old. He was battling the Jackson 5. They used to battle. They were from, I believe they were from Ohio, the Comets. And they used to travel and they used to have the battles of the bands. And we weren't old enough to get in some of these shows. So we were kids. So we really couldn't see it unless they did a festival and performed at like a fest somewhere. Then you'll get to see them. But the Comets used to battle the Jacksons. And they would have battle of the bands, and Joe be out there. They couldn't deal with the Jacksons' choreography and their steps and their movement, how organized they was. Joe was a disciplinarian in that point. And he was very good at that. I think that they villainized him so much, they didn't mention his genius. Joe was a visionary. That's where Michael gets a lot of his vision from his father. That's not explored a lot in this. Joe had the vision of the Jacksons. He the one instilled them to be great. It's like, you don't want to work at the steel mill like me, right? No, right. You don't want that. You got to make your own mark. You got to do this. So he had to instill them and teach them how to will themselves to be the best. This is why Michael wanted it so bad. He knew Michael wanted the stage. He loved to perform. He knew his son in that aspect, but he used it as a manipulation too. Like, I need to manipulate this. Michael is going to go through the roof. He knew Michael was more talented. And in the world, he wants to keep that control as much as possible of Michael, because Michael going to go to the stratosphere. He know that. He know what his son could do. He's not ignorant, but his vision was masterful. He envisioned the tours and naming them and making them big and bringing the lights and the fireworks and with the dance steps, with the outfit designs. Michael decided to just take it to another level. Like when they did the victory tour, that was Michael's design for that stage to be so big. That was the first time a stage was ever that big. And they wanted it in a stadium so that they could have it that big. Mike helped design that. That was part of his condition. Plus, Joe never sat down with Michael and made Michael do that. That was the mom, because the family was in financial trouble, like the rest of the Jacksons. And this is the time when Thriller's out, and Michael want to go on a European tour, world tour for Thriller, and they trying to get this going, and you know, John Brock is telling them, like, Breaker or whatever, is telling them no. Tell your father them no. I'm your manager anyway. No. But Michael did it because his mother. She said, your brothers need this. Do this tour for them, and then you don't have to do anything else. You can go your own path. So that's what really happened. He did it for his mother. She asked him to do it. Joe did have that conversation with her and said, we in trouble, baby. Nobody want to book the Jacksons without Michael. So if Michael ain't going to be with the Jacksons, there's no more tours, no more promotion, nothing. All gone. Joe was an abuser in different ways. It's not the physical abuse. Joe was mostly manipulative. Mental abuse is his game. Y'all just focused on Joe whooping their ass. Every black family then got their butt whooped and had a dad just like that. You gonna mind me, boy? Tag you up. That ain't nothing but a good old butt cutting. And nobody felt sorry that Michael was getting toe up. Because everybody got toe up back then. I know you guys in your new days look at it as, oh my God, he physically abused Michael. That's just called a whooping, what they was getting. And like I said, he whooped Janet, he whooped LaToya, he whooped Reby, he whooped every last one of them. He was an equal opportunity whooper. He wasn't just going around there whooping them for no reason. They did something wrong, they got punished. All right, black folks know exactly what it was. There's a difference between disciplinary somebody and beating someone. That is entirely different. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in there when I was watching the movie. I was tear his ass up, Joe. There you go. He told you to come in. You act like you ain't here. Oh, he heard it now. I bet you he heard it now. Oh, you ain't hearing me today? What? He knew to get in line. I had a cousin like that. He got more whoopings than I've ever gotten because he was always going to push the line. He was like Michael Jackson in that aspect. I gotta be heard. And he's like, oh, okay, go ahead. You want to say your piece? Say your piece. He said what he had to say. Okay, he said what you had to say. Yeah, we still don't care. Now you finna get a whoop. See, back then, my cousin's parents was different. They used to negotiate with the kids. It's another psychological thing. You can have a whooping or you can have a punishment. Punishment is long, or you can take the whooping. So they make them decide what part of the punishment they gonna get. Now, that was really psychological. Like, you made you think, if I take the whooping, it'd be over in about a couple minutes. Then I'll cry, it'll be over, and then I'm straight. Or if I take the punishment, I don't get whooping, but then I'm locked down. I can't go outside for the rest of the day. I can't do nothing. You got to go with the whoopings, you know. Right. They make you pick your own demise. My household was different. That was my auntie and my uncle. Them. They used to do that with my cousin. Let him choose. Like, y'all got to choose the left hand or the right hand. But my cousin, he didn't care. He was going to get whooping and the punishment. They told him, we don't want to hear it. Go away. He just wouldn't let it go. No, because I'm right. I got to be heard. And he's kind of like that today. Same way. He got to be heard. So, yeah, down south, they make you go out there and get the switch. Go out there and get me a switch off the tree. You had to go get the weapon that's going to be your demise. I got to go get it too. That's part of the psychological effect. You going to get something to tear yourself up with. Yeah, down south, it used to be a switch, boy. You got whelps on your leg, everything, boy. It was different. That's why you better mind. You better not get out of line. So, what other things they did not explore? I wanted them to explore something that I thought was very key in the story of Michael, was him buying the Beatles catalog. That was the biggest thing that I wanted to see in the movie that I didn't see. I'm like, how you cannot tell that story unless they do it in the sequel, but then it's out of, he didn't do it in the bad era. He did it during the Thriller, during that gap. So unless they start off with that, him buying the Beatles catalog and going down that one, because that was the switch. Soon as he bought that, the switch was clicked. Michael Jackson was the biggest star in the world. And once he basically had control, he met the president, Ronald Reagan, everybody out there. They all love Michael Jackson, the whole world. And this is a man that you're going to try to directly try to tear down. You better be careful. And as Michael started to distance himself more and more, once the Bad album came around, this was Michael's own independence, his own world tour, everything. Everything started to switch against Michael from the Bad album. Because soon as he was getting ready to come out with the Thriller, he bought the Beatles catalog. Paul McCartney and him friendship deteriorated from that point on. Paul McCartney told him about buying catalogs. Like, Michael, you need to buy catalogs. That's how you really make money in this thing. And he was like, real estate, you got to buy property. So he bought the Neverland Ranch. You know, he bought that and he had all this money. So he started to buy things. But smartly, he started to review and look into catalogs, musical catalogs that he could buy. You know, Michael Jackson owned so much. You guys didn't even know he owned like all of the jingles that you would see in the commercials. He owned almost all of them. Like, I'm like, my goodness. TV commercial jingles, he owned those. He owned so many music catalogs. He bought James Brown catalog, wanted to give it to James Brown so he didn't have to perform. And that's what he was like, artists got to perform into their 60s and 70s, and they have nothing. Like, they can't get paid off their own music. So he didn't never want that to happen to another artist. So what they decided to do was change everything. And I mean change it all. And when they changed everything, it went to a whole nother level. Because Michael Jackson decided to buy the Beatles catalog. Yoko Ono was actually selling it to somebody else. Paul McCartney just didn't have the money to buy it. He was like, I was going to buy it. I'm getting my other partners together. We were going to buy it. Yoko Ono was like, look, I'm selling it. I was going to sell it to these other guys. They were going to try to buy it to stop Michael Jackson from owning it. And Paul McCartney was friends with Michael. Plus, you know, Michael and her met, and she liked Michael. So she did the deal with Michael Jackson, and they bought it. And when they bought the album, I mean, not the album, but when they bought the show, It all went left fast.
All right, so today we're diving.
So the Beatles catalog, as soon as he bought it, everybody turned on him. Everybody turned on him. The media start calling him Wacko, Wacko Jacko. That came a little bit later, but he was a parasite. They start putting everything in the tabloids. Michael Jackson did this. He bought the Elephant Man's bones. He sleeps in an oxygen tank at night. He's a weird guy. So it went from praising Michael to destroying Michael in the press and trying to destroy his name and image, all while he was working on the Bad album. So all of that happened right before Bad. So that's why when you see the song Just Leave Me Alone, that's what it was about. All the worldwide attention. He's got a shrine to Elizabeth Taylor. He's got this. He's insane. This guy is like, wow. Okay, he's crazy. He's a deranged man. They did everything to try to lower his value. But Michael was far too powerful. And they didn't realize how powerful he was. They didn't care nothing about the tabloids. Michael didn't do interviews because, like he said, he wanted to be mysterious. He just didn't want to do interviews anymore anyway. He didn't like talking to the public. I mean, to press and media when they just want to twist his words. So he didn't like it anyway. So he just wouldn't say anything. So they would just write all this stuff and he would answer in his music, in his videos. So when the Bad album came out, once again, they was against it, trying to find anything they could on Michael Jackson. So again, you got to understand there was a whole big fight behind it. But it's funny because everybody thought like LL Cool J and Michael Jackson had a problem. But he really didn't. It was a different situation that took place. They both had the album Bad that came out in 87. So LL Cool J album was called Bad, and they was trying to say the song I'm Bad. So they was like, man, y'all got two albums out with the same title. Michael Jackson wasn't changing his title at all. But they was like, this is going to be good promotion, you know. So when they came into town, LL Cool J and Michael Jackson actually met up when they was doing the tour for the Bad album, because Michael Jackson could have crushed LL Cool J's whole career if he wanted to. But yeah, he could have crushed his whole career. He chose not to. Run DMC was supposed to be on the song I'm Bad because he wanted to do an anti-gang thing again because the gang things was getting out of control. So that's what it was like. Michael Jackson was with the Crips when he came up there, when he was doing I'm Bad. And he was going to have like the gangs again in the video. And Michael Jackson is trying to do, which is I'm Bad. It's like another part of Beat It. Beat It, people don't even understand what the song is about. It's telling people to, why are you there watching what's going on? Why are you sitting around watching this gang activity take place? There's no need to be there. to witness this two people fighting in the street. Just beat it. Just go. Just beat it. Right. You don't need to be there. It doesn't matter who's going right, who's wrong, go right. Just beat it. Just get out of there. So I'm bad is going to take it into the point where you still got power to stand up to peer pressure to join a gang. You can get out of the gang. So he wanted to do that anti-gang thing to people are peer pressured to be in the gangs because Michael Jackson was listening to these people when he was talking to them. And the dude was like, man, I ain't got no choice, man. This is my hood, dude. I get jumped every day. I ain't had no choice but to join the gang. So he was trying to tell them they still have power. They don't have to choose the gang. Like you can fight your inner strength, your inner power, you know. So Mike was like, I'm like, Mike, ain't no dancers gonna tell these people. Mike, like, they try to tell you join the gang, you just stop. I'm bad. And I'm going. Now get yourself in the gang line. So they can dance their way out of it. But the message was clear. This is what he wanted to do. So Run DMC was supposed to be on the record. Right? But the original record that they had was with Run DMC. And it was Michael Jackson and Run DMC. And Michael Jackson had on a Kango. And Run DMC is who he wanted to work with. So they come over there, Run's coked out, and they going to meet Michael Jackson. So Run is like, his eyes is all over the place. Yo, man, Michael Jackson, man, that's what I'm talking about, man. Michael Jackson, Run DMC, yeah. So, you know, Run is just out off the walls, insane. He can't stay still. Michael knows something's off with him. And Jay, you know, he's got Bubbles. He's like, hey, he's a monkey. Then Bubbles jumped in his arms. He jumped off Michael and jumped on Jam Master Jay. And Jay was like, boom, threw Bubbles on the ground. He Bubbles! And that was the end of I'm Bad with Run DMC. That was the end of I'm Bad with Run DMC being on the record. They was escorted immediately off the premises. And oh man. A lot of people wanted to see Prince and Michael Jackson had a back and forth and focus on that. But they didn't want to go on to a Prince and Michael thing. It would be a distraction from the movie. Just keep it the way it is. The fact that they just mentioned that funny line he said about Prince in the movie was hilarious. But that's too much of a distraction. So I understood them not wanting to do that. So it went to bringing Prince in on the Bad album. So Prince and Michael Jackson was supposed to do I'm Bad. So it's all written out. And Michael Jackson had his vocals already done. Your butt is mine. And Prince is like, your butt is mine. I'm not going to be saying that to him, and he damn sure ain't going to be saying that to me. So he told Quincy Jones, like, y'all don't need me on this record. The record's going to do what y'all want it to do. He's like, it's a pop hit. It's going to be great. Y'all don't need me on this record. I'm not doing the record. And Michael would just be like, I don't like him, Quincy. I told you. He's so arrogant. Oh, I told you. He's a meanie. He's a meanie. He's so arrogant. So, right. So Prince was working on his album at the time that was coming out, which was a massive, like one of his best albums, Sign of the Times. So Michael's working on his album. So their albums has been a battle. It's going to be a battle between Prince and Michael Jackson's I'm Bad versus Sign of the Times. And even though Sign of the Times didn't get the it got the critical acclaim of being viewed as the better album than I'm Bad, than the bad album. And for Prince, that's his goal. Like, I want to make an album that's not really pop, but just an amazing musical, sonical performance, for sound. And Prince's audience was different from Michael's audience. Michael had the young kids. Prince didn't have young kids. Prince had those people that's out at 3, 4 in the morning. Prince had those people that go to the clubs, and he had the same type of audience with the blacks and everybody else, but he was missing the younger audience. Prince didn't have the younger audience. That was not there for him. Michael had the kids all the way up to 75,000 years old. Mike had the world. Now, his beef with Jermaine and the split from Motown, I wanted to see that done. Jermaine, even though it's more of a Michael story, but the split, and that's why I told you where Joe Jackson is actually very smart. He knew to get away from Berry Gordy and go get this deal at Epic. Michael was 100% on board with that move to get away from. It was time to leave Berry Gordy. Berry Gordy was stuck in the traditional old Motown ways, the old stuff, and wasn't about evolving. He couldn't see it. His vision was limited. And the way they were doing the Jackson 5, and Mike was just like, I don't want to do these songs. I love Stevie Wonder and all these people writing, but I want to do some new stuff. Boom, 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 boom. Him doing the Wiz. I would have loved to see Michael Jackson do the Wiz. I would have loved to see that in the movie. Him living with Stephanie Mills while he was out there doing the Wiz. They used to date. So Michael's girlfriend, which was Stephanie Mills, they should have put that in the movie. They fell out over Chris Tucker. Buddy, you have no idea where that fallout really happened. Oh, the Michael and Jermaine thing, this is why Janet is upset. I'm going to let y'all in on a little secret. Now, my Patreons that's here, we will go down the rabbit hole a little more, because this is more like they feel like Jermaine, because Jafar is in it, Jermaine is kind of steering the boat to where he wants it to go. Like, this is the Jermaine Jackson movie. So it's like, oh, is this the Jermaine Jackson, Michael Jackson movie? Because Janet was like, that didn't happen that way. That didn't happen this way. And yes, a lot of incidents in the movie is not happening that way. I mean, Michael Jackson sitting there directing the guys what to do with the steps, telling them what to do. Okay, let's go like this. That did not happen. The man in that white jacket that you saw behind Michael Jackson that they had in the movie, Michael Peters, who did Thriller, who did Billy, he did Beat It. He was the choreographer. He was the gay dude in the white suit. He was the one in Beat It that you saw dancing better than Michael Jackson in the Beat It video. Who's that dude in the white suit? That's the guy who made the steps. So that's why he was. That's Michael Peters. Michael Peters was the best choreographer there was. So when they came up with that, but in the movie, I understand they wanted to make Michael the one that did it, and he came up with the moves and everything. So they just put the focus on Michael. Cool. Most people ain't gonna know the other Michael did it. But yeah, I think he died from AIDS. You know, he was gay. You know, everybody knew Michael Peters was gay. Yeah, Thriller, all those moves that people do those dances to, Michael Peters. So you learn a lot coming here. Well, Janet thinks she should have just stayed out of it. Just be quiet. You saw the movie. You had a lot to say to the family and everybody. You going against the family about the movie, talking about you didn't like it because it's this. And she was close to her father. Janet don't understand because she was a little kid when all this stuff was going on. And she was out of the fray. Like Michael is older than her. She comes in mostly when her success started taking off. But she went through the same thing with Joe that Michael did. She wanted to control. She wanted control. Then she took control of her life and she started doing her thing her way. People forget Janet had about 2 albums out before Control. So when Janet blew up and became as big as Michael, or at least comparable up there with Michael, Jermaine was once again intimidated. Michael, what made him great is that he was such a great entertainer. Just like you saw there, the way the people are entertained, his music entertained you. You never went to a Michael Jackson concert and said, man, this wasn't nothing. You ain't gonna never have that. Mike gave you everything. So he was never going to be that again. Janet and Jermaine break up. They brother and sister. What do you mean break up? Yeah, they had to delete and cut some of the stuff out of the movie. They did touch a little bit on the allegations when they originally filmed the movie, but that might be in the sequel. So that's why they edited it out because of the lawsuits they got going on. They said they had to cut it out, so they reshot 30 minutes of the movie to finish it because they had to cut that part out of it. So they decided this is too big anyway. Let's just make it, let's see what it does. And if it does well, then we'll make another movie. And the projections was already through the roof. You know, I guess I can let y'all in on an early secret. That's not a secret. That there will be a sequel. Most of them didn't understand it. They didn't notice it or see it back in the day. I thought I had something here. Yes. And to destroy everything that they built, everything they worked hard for. The Jackson family wasn't going to let it go. They didn't talk about Michael's addiction to the stage. Michael loved to perform. So the fact that, like, for instance, him going on stage, they made it like Joe went and talked to Michael and forced Michael to do the tour and continue the tour at that point. When it was, they didn't explore it, but the Jackson family, like the boys, they were losing money. Michael was making money, but they weren't making money off Thriller. They weren't making money off any of that. Michael Jackson was making the money. The Jackson family, they wasn't doing nothing. So it was like, we need a tour with the family. Michael Jackson wanted to launch his own tour for the Thriller album, which would have broke every record in the world. But the Victory tour comes out, and at that time, tickets was like $25, to $30. And that was a lot of money in the 80s. I remember my grandmother gave the money to our neighbor's daughter, Sansan. She wanted to go to the concert. And I was a little kid, and I could hear the victory concert going off from where I live. It was at Comiskey Park, White Sox Stadium. And we stayed across the street from the White Sox Stadium. White Sox Stadium is on 35th Street. We're on 41st in the building. And we're up, and we can just hear it just going off. Boom, boom, boom. I can remember that day like it's vivid. I can almost remember what I was wearing. But when you're trying to reintroduce people like new fans and kids, if you go to the movie theater, you see all the kids dancing at the end of the movie in the stands. They're going up, performing, spinning, doing all these dances in the house. That's why they let all the songs play when the credits are rolling, so people can dance and do everything they want. And it's been happening in movie theaters all around the world. Because they wanted to entertain the people. Michael Jackson's music is on streaming, and believe me, there's new people that's just now discovering Michael Jackson, like their kids who are in this TikTok era, who didn't know about, they knew about Michael Jackson, but not like this. So for them, this movie is doing what it needed to do. For us who are older, yeah, we will want to see more explored. See if they're going to touch on it on a major level, but nothing that they played in the movie, I didn't know. But there were some people who didn't know all this stuff. I know so much and so vast about it because I've done the whole breakdown and the truth of why they took him out. That's on my Patreon, which is Carcino for Life. That people know now. This is why they took this route. For instance, Joe Jackson never asked Michael to do the victory tour. He told his wife their conversation they had about. Yep. True to it. Of course, because if you move in that format, you're often going to see a lot. There are so many people that's involved in situations that you just don't understand. Like, I would have loved to see that explored more, that victory tour and how they were.
It's common for complex public feuds to feel like they're missing a deeper level of analysis. Exploring the psychological motivations or the behind-the-scenes history of those involved could...
I'm like, well, I wasn't asking it. My phone thought I was asking it a question and started trying to explain to me. Well, all my Patreons here who are VIP know on our Patreon, we've covered this. We did the killing of Michael Jackson on, like, we had to break that down in the parts to tell you who was all responsible and was behind it all. So we didn't really have a problem with the film. And in a total as far as it being entertaining, but I advise you watch that documentary on the Patreon. We break it all down. Why is it always a conspiracy when someone's black? It's not a conspiracy, it's just actually factual. When a black man owns generational wealth, the first black man in the world to actually have generational wealth, they come to destroy it. That Beatles catalog is worth billions. Michael Jackson could tell you he would never be broke because they know the truth. He doesn't, liquid cash, he might be broke, but he could just go take loans out on that forever. He was $500 million in debt when he died, debt that he could pay on forever because of his catalog. Soon as he died, now his catalog is plus 3 billion. Michael Jackson's own musical catalog, which they created the allegations just so they could take him off of radio. All because he got the guy fired who tried to destroy him from within. And he got rid of Tommy Mottola. But all of that's going to be in the sequel, should be, because that's when it gets crazy. Yeah, when you hear that album, you know that's like that Michael Jackson, the History album, that was like a change in the shift. That's why the Bad album sold half of what Thriller did. They went immediately to try to sabotage Michael. Then Dangerous comes out and sells about as much as the Bad album. They're almost neck and neck. But we're talking $30 million. Like Thriller is like 64 million, almost for the actual album in sales, like 64 million records sold. You know, it's like, what are we really doing here? 64 million records sold. And it's still selling records. Then you have Bad selling 30 something million, had more number ones than Thriller. And the Bad album had sold 30, almost 40 million. Then the Dangerous album sells like 30, 40 million. The Michael Jackson History album, which is the Angry album, with Scream on there and all his other songs that he came out with. And he was angry a lot on that album. He was really mad. So he only came out with like the Earth song. It was like 3 music videos off that album. But a lot of it was angry music. Angry Michael. He was angry with these allegations and stuff they came out with. They tried to destroy him. Yes, I'm watching the game right now. I'll be doing my post game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's what you call done and done. No, not really. I never put that much focus into it. You thought this was a Laker shirt? No. So anyway, thank you guys for listening. We'll cover more on the Patreon. Hopefully, you guys are over there enjoying yourselves. We got a lot of good things up. Right now, the hottest thing that's up is the Tupac and Kadada album. What was MJ's best album? Um, I like the Bad album more than I like the Thriller album when I was growing up, because you got to think about how young I was when Thriller was out. So if you was to go back to listen to it now, um, Off the Wall, a lot of people choose Off the Wall as his best album. And I wouldn't be upset with those who said that. Some people like the Dangerous album. I know people that like that album a lot. For me, it was Bad album because I was older then. I was like, yeah, these are my songs, the Dirty Diana, all the songs. But if I went back and listened to them all now, I would say Thriller is the best album. Thriller is completely the best album. It's a once in a lifetime masterpiece because there's no album that I've ever heard that connect everybody, everything. You got rock. They had to create a category for Michael Jackson because of it. There's no they pop. Okay, you're just a pop chart guy. So this is popular music. We don't know what to call it. Billie Jean was considered a rock song, soul song, R&B song, rhythm and blues. It's just they didn't know where to put Billie Jean, so they had to create pop. You know, this actually Elizabeth Taylor called it popular music, like it's pop music. So right, so you got Thriller, then Bad, then Off the Wall, and um, I would say Dangerous, Invincible, then History. If I'm gonna do the albums, then anything after that you can, categorize any way you would like. Yeah, Off the Wall had a soul to it because it was very soulful, but it was for that time. It was like the end of the 70s sound, going into the 80s sound. But the reach what made Off the Wall jump was the sonic. Like sonically, it is incredible. Like it's flawless. And its technology is pitch. Like it's clean. The audio, everything is clean. But it was more like disco pop. But She's Out of My Life. A lot of these songs that he had that were, it was like a coming of age. It was for that time. That was a good intro album. Yeah, he was in Club 54, and that's when he was getting his ideas for the album. So he was at Club 54 and he was just sitting there listening to the music while everybody else is doing drugs, partying. Michael's listening to this music. And he's like, he's seeing how people going crazy for this music, this sound. And it's going into this like disco type of era and this sound. So he wanted to have a song that was going to play in the club like Club 54. And that's why you only saw a tribute to it a little bit when they showed Club 54 and people was going off in the movie. Yeah, that's where he was getting his ideas from that from. Yeah, I call it Club 54, Studio 54, whatever. But yeah, that was the spot. That was a Rick James spot too. Man, everybody used to be in a band back then. All my uncles and every neighborhood had a band. Like Battle of the Bands was intense. School talent shows was like concerts. So anyway, let me get back to the game. I'll talk to y'all after the game. I'm out.